Operation in Strait of Hormuz, 2018-2019. In the volatile waters of the Strait of Hormuz, where nearly 20% of the world's oil passes through a narrow choke point, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, waged a relentless and calculated campaign between 2018 and 2019 that sent shockwaves through global energy markets and pushed the region to the brink of conflict. Through a series of aggressive naval maneuvers, vessel seizures, mine attacks, and surveillance operations, the IRGC demonstrated its ability to disrupt global oil supplies, project Iranian power, and challenge U.S. and allied dominance in the Persian Gulf. For the IRGC, the Strait of Hormuz was not just a strategic waterway, it was a battlefield where Iran's asymmetric capabilities could be unleashed to impose costs on its adversaries and reshape the balance of power in the region. The escalation in the Strait of Hormuz was triggered by the Trump administration's decision in May 2018 to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal and reimpose crippling sanctions on Tehran under the maximum pressure campaign. The sanctions targeted Iran's oil exports, choking off the regime's primary source of revenue and plunging the Iranian economy into crisis. Faced with economic strangulation and growing internal unrest, Iran adopted a strategy of maximum resistance, turning to the IRGC to execute a series of asymmetric operations aimed at destabilizing the region, disrupting global oil supplies, and forcing Washington to reconsider its hardline stance. The IRGC's strategy was rooted in the understanding that while Iran could not match the conventional military power of the United States and its allies, it could leverage its asymmetric capabilities to create chaos in the Gulf and impose costs that would reverberate across the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which approximately one-fifth of the world's oil supply passes, became the perfect arena for Iran to demonstrate its power and strategic reach. The IRGC's operations in the Strait of Hormuz unfolded in multiple phases, each carefully calibrated to escalate tensions without provoking a full-scale war. The first phase involved a series of provocative naval maneuvers designed to test the limits of U.S. and allied resolve. IRGC speedboats, armed with machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades, began aggressively harassing U.S. and allied naval vessels transiting the strait. These high-speed encounters, often taking place at dangerously close distances, were designed to demonstrate Iran's ability to disrupt maritime traffic and challenge U.S. dominance in the region. The second phase of the IRGC's strategy saw the use of limpet mines and other explosive devices to target commercial oil tankers operating in the Gulf. In May and June 2019, a series of mysterious attacks damaged multiple oil tankers near the Strait of Hormuz, raising fears of a wider conflict. The attacks, which bore the hallmarks of IRGC asymmetric tactics, targeted vessels from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Japan, countries aligned with the U.S. campaign against Iran. While Iran denied any involvement, U.S. and allied intelligence agencies quickly concluded that the attacks were carried out by the IRGC, using underwater operatives and small boats to attach explosives to the hulls of the tankers. But the most dramatic phase of the IRGC's operations came in July 2019, when Iranian forces seized multiple oil tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz. The most high-profile incident was the seizure of the British-flagged Stena Impero, which was boarded by IRGC commandos in a daring operation that involved helicopters and fast-attack boats. The Stena Impero was escorted to the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas, where its crew was detained, and the vessel was impounded. The IRGC claimed that the tanker had violated maritime regulations, but the seizure was widely seen as retaliation for the earlier capture of the Iranian tanker Grace 1 by British authorities off the coast of Gibraltar. The seizure of the Stena Impero was not an isolated incident. In the weeks that followed, the IRGC seized several other vessels, including the Panamanian-flagged Raya, which Iran accused of smuggling fuel. These operations were part of a broader Iranian strategy to demonstrate that Tehran could retaliate against Western sanctions by disrupting the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC's ability to seize foreign vessels with impunity underscored its dominance in the Persian Gulf and sent a chilling message to U.S. allies in the region. The IRGC's operations in the Strait of Hormuz also extended beyond physical confrontations. Iran's cyber capabilities were brought into play as part of its asymmetric warfare strategy. Iranian cyber operatives, working closely with the IRGC, launched attacks on critical infrastructure, targeting U.S. and allied naval assets, oil facilities, and maritime systems. These cyber attacks were designed to create confusion and sow uncertainty, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. The United States, recognizing the growing threat posed by the IRGC's actions, responded by bolstering its military presence in the region. In May 2019, the Pentagon deployed an aircraft carrier strike group, B-52 bombers, and additional missile defense systems to the Gulf, sending a clear signal to Tehran that any further provocations would be met with overwhelming force. But despite the show of strength, the U.S. was reluctant to engage in direct military confrontation with Iran, aware that any escalation could plunge the region into a full-scale war with catastrophic consequences. The IRGC's operations in the Strait of Hormuz were not just about disrupting oil supplies. They were about demonstrating Iran's ability to control the flow of global energy and reshape the strategic landscape of the Gulf. By turning the Strait of Hormuz into a theater of asymmetric warfare, the IRGC had shown that Iran could impose costs on its adversaries without provoking direct military retaliation. The attacks on oil tankers, the seizure of foreign vessels, and the harassment of U.S. naval assets were all part of a broader strategy to raise the stakes and force Washington and its allies to confront the reality that Iran would not be bullied into submission. The IRGC's actions in the Strait of Hormuz had profound geopolitical consequences. They exposed the vulnerabilities of the global energy supply chain, raised insurance premiums for vessels operating in the Gulf, and forced Gulf states to rethink their security postures. The threat posed by the IRGC also compelled the United States to form a maritime coalition, known as Operation Sentinel, aimed at protecting commercial shipping in the region. However, despite these efforts, the IRGC's ability to operate with impunity in the Strait of Hormuz underscored Iran's asymmetric advantage and its capacity to shape the dynamics of the Persian Gulf. For the IRGC, the operations in the Strait of Hormuz were a resounding success. The campaign had demonstrated Iran's ability to project power beyond its borders, disrupt global oil supplies, and challenge U.S. and allied dominance in the region. Through a combination of naval harassment, vessel seizures, and covert attacks, the IRGC had shown that Iran's influence in the Gulf was unshakable and that any attempt to isolate or weaken Tehran would be met with fierce resistance. As the dust settled on the Strait of Hormuz, the IRGC had once again proven that in the unforgiving waters of the Persian Gulf, Iran's reach was long, its tactics were lethal, and its capacity to challenge the world's most powerful military was unparalleled. The message was clear. Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz was not just a matter of geography. It was a testament to the IRGC's mastery of asymmetric warfare and its ability to shape the course of global events on its own terms.